Hi everyone, we're Optimus Robotics and we're joined today by Sam Macdonald, who is the president of Deep Trekker.
Hi there.
Okay, I'll start us off. The first question is, can you tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you've done with robotics and technology?
Sure. So I fell into robotics. It was a bit of an accident way back when I was in university. So I'm one of the few folks on the Deep Trekker team without an engineering degree. I was in school in university taking business and accounting and finance, and I did have a background working on the IT help desk. I was a self-taught computer programmer way back when that was a cool thing to do, or maybe not so cool when I was a kid, but definitely computer camp kid and grew up around technology and understood it. And so this opportunity came up with an engineering firm for a technical manual writer. And a friend of mine had interviewed for the job, and he didn't really think it was up his alley. It's just a summer job. And he said, but I know somebody who can do it. She's not an engineer, but she pretends to be one on TV from time to time. So I had the interview, and I think they were more interested in the fact that I could set up their first local area network than they were with my technical manual writing skills. But they were a robotics and automation company. And so I started writing manuals for them as well as doing their IT. And then subsequently worked at that company after I graduated, going the other way, doing what was called applications engineering. So concepting of equipment and doing the initial layouts and designs of that equipment, and then working with the sales team to sell that to the folks that needed to put together car parts or medical devices. So I did that for about 8 years, and then I had a couple of hops and jumps within my career, worked for BlackBerry, and really knew that at that point I was an entrepreneur. I didn't want to have a boss anymore, but I didn't really have a product to go after. So I got involved in the startup world with all these great startup companies making different technologies, and sort of helping them navigate through things like finance and accounting and getting venture capital and all those things. So running startup camps across the country here, doing that, and then consulting with a couple of small technology companies. And then my aha moment for Deep Trekker came when I dropped a flashlight off the side of my boat, and I thought, man, we should make a robot to go get that. And we had, that day and sort of the next couple months, hey, we had all kinds of ideas of who would use this fancy robot. And it was around then that I started to do the research and realized this is called a remotely operated vehicle, not an underwater drone or a robot. Drones weren't really a thing yet. DJI hadn't been born, but the remote control submarine was not the term that was being used. And a friend of mine was friends with a fellow named Jeff Lotz, and he had designed one of these for his college project. He is an engineer, thankfully. And so Jeff and I got together through a series of connections, and he had some designs for what became our very first product, the DTG2. And we built up about 300 of them in Jeff's basement before we finally moved out to our own facility in 2015. So from there, we've devised all manner of robots to solve different customers' problems, and that's really what we focus on is what are the problems that the customers are trying to solve with robots, and what kind of robot would do that. And so my engineering side of things is a little less than that it has been in my previous work. I kind of go, okay, this is what the customer's trying to solve. We have some basic ideas around it, and then I let all the engineers do the heavy lifting at this point, but it wasn't always the way.
Thank you for sharing a little bit of your journey with us. You've done some incredible work.
Thank you.
Our next question is, what have you struggled with most in Deep Trekker, and how have you overcome it?
Well, my personal struggles are saying no to some things. I mean, our customers come up with these great challenges, and the chewier, the better. We had a NASA call us, and they wanted to do an inspection of a methane lake on, I think it was like on Mercury or something. I can't even remember. And so it had gone through my sales manager, a fellow named Cody, and he took it directly to Jeff, my partner. And Jeff said, "Are you insane?" And I said to Cody, I said, don't say no yet, because I want to investigate. Maybe we could do this, right? Like, Jeff's just a little cautious, and maybe our stuff would do that. And so Jeff called me and he said, "You know that this is 2 degrees above absolute zero. I was like, right, okay, our robots can't survive absolute zero, certainly freezing temperatures, but sending it up to mercury was not going to be something that was in our future. So my biggest struggle is I get really excited and I get really turned on by kind of all these big hard problems, and you have to choose which ones are feasible and which ones are going to, you know, frankly make you money over time, and this one we just had to say no to.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's actually very interesting that NASA reached out to explore a lake on Mercury.
I know. I still want to do it.
Whom do you consider an inspiration in your field?
I'm a big Elon Musk fan. If you watch him speak, the way he talks about things is sort of the way I feel. Really, how hard could that be? Let's just do that. You know, when he sees a traffic problem under a city, he's like, well, why don't we just dig a big tunnel? Oh, well, we don't have a drill or a bore to make a big enough hole. Well, we'll just start that company that makes a big hole. Well, all right. So he looks at things and he really never says no, as crazy and ridiculous as they seem. And he just is really visionary. And so I'm a big fan of Mr. Musk, and I don't know necessarily if I want his fame, but I certainly would like his bank account.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's really funny. We've seen robots on the International Space Station, dancing robots, soft robots, and of course, deep sea robots. Where do you think robotics will go next?
I think we're really going to see a shift away from just straight robots. So we look at robots as things that exist in their own space. So you see, you know, the dog running along. I love that dog, by the way. I want to get one of those. And then you see a Roombas running about. We're really playing in a broader area called inspection robotics. And I see that moving to a combination of harvesting the data, which is what we do. We have robots, and the product that the robots come up with is data, whether that is video data or sonar data or non-destructive testing, or we do environmental sensors. But the robot's job is really to harvest that data. And sometimes we're in high current or areas where there's low visibility or other challenges that are under the sea, lots of things that are in the way or get tangled up in. And so we want to make with the robot it really easy to harvest that data, which collect the data. But I think the next step is getting that data ready in as automated a function as we can for consumption. So you have all this great video, but who wants to watch like 300 hours of a wall inspection when all you want to see is that one defect? So can we use AI and software to detect that defect and then automatically build that report out so whoever needs that data can consume it in a really easy way? So I see robotics moving from just a thing in space to something that's connected over the internet, that's very much entrenched in the cloud, that's using machine vision and AI. So it's very much a platform as opposed to just the thing in space. And I really see that as the future.
It will be really interesting to see the progress with robotics and AI. So our last question is, what advice do you have for high schoolers and especially young women interested in technology?
I think one of the coolest things for me that, and I know we're in a weird COVID time right now, but was the places that I got inspiration. And I wish that honestly either my own brain or someone who is smarter than me had told me at the time, hey, I really think you're bent for engineering. Because I would do things like go to a water park and then try to figure out why some kids went down the slide a little bit faster than other kids, and what could I do to increase my acceleration, and why is that acceleration the way that it is. But I'm also a huge lover of roller coaster. So I was always really fascinated how those roller coasters went together. And my dad sold chains and chain drives. And when he told me that he had sold some to Six Flags, I think I made him sit there and tell me all about it for about 4 hours. So my advice is really to look for inspiration all around you. What really gets you excited? But the other thing is, where do you want to work? And I don't mean sort of geographically. I would like to work in Bali or maybe in Hawaii somewhere. But what types of environments really do you want to be immersed in? And I grew up on the Great Lakes area. I love boating. I love swimming. I love everything about ocean life and scuba diving. So really, okay, I have a passion for engineering and technology and the way that systems of parts move together. And how do I make a career that does that, but is out on the ocean somewhere? And if you can't find that job, you are never too young to start it on your own. And honestly, there are a ton of resources out there in terms of people who will mentor you, and honestly, people that will give you money, to get your ideas off the ground. So figure out what it is that inspires you, what kind of makes you ask questions that you don't necessarily go straight to Google for, and then what type of environment do you want to exist in? Where do you want to work? Because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. So really try to engineer a career, if you will, around the technology you want to be a part of and then the environment that you want to live in.
Thank you so much for sharing your advice with us. It's really inspiring how you took two parts of your identity and managed to create a career that you really like of it. I think that's something that we all want to do with our lives, and it's great that you did it really well.
It doesn't happen overnight. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that I'll give you is, if you don't know what it is right now, don't sweat it, because you can change. I went back to school at the age of 33 to university for another undergrad. So it was me and all the 18-year-olds, right? So the old lady in the chemistry class. So I mean, you can reinvent. It's certainly making mistakes in your career is never going to be a bad thing. Where I started, which was selling photocopiers, and then into accounting and this automation equipment company, it certainly didn't end up where I thought it was going to go. And life ebbs and flows like that. So if it feels like you don't understand what you want to do right now, don't sweat it. Just keep taking science and math.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's for a young person interested in technology, it's kind of hard to put that all into scope, but the advice that you gave is really helpful and kind of comforting to know that if you make a mistake that you can always change it later down the road.
You absolutely can. And I think, not telling you lies on the science and math. I wouldn't have been able to go back to school at 33 if I didn't have chemistry from high school. Not that I remembered any of it, but they demanded the stamp on the paper. So it certainly helped me do a couple of reinventions over time. So, but yeah, don't sweat it if you don't know right now. It's a long life, and changes are good, and they help you build up your general overall skill set. So there's never such thing as a mistake in a career.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here, and we look forward to seeing all the stuff that you do with Deep Trekker in the future.